garage. In these weekly videos, I take you along for a week in the shop with the unique and maybe interesting things that I do. So if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and stick around to see what I come up with this week. Picking up right where we left off the last video, the first task of this morning is to swap over the StopTech brakes from the parts car that I have onto Christian's S4 here. He's also going to be picking up his powder-coated C5 wheels this week. So with the new brakes, with the nice paint on them, and the powder-coated wheels, it definitely should make this car look a little bit better. We also have the black leather interior pulled out of the parts car, which will be replacing the unfortunately dirty white Alcantara. So just an update, I have the StopTech calipers and rotors on. You have to remove the stock dust shield at the back to make them fit. And the hardware is actually Imperial heads, obviously metric threads though, but that's just a little bit of a weird thing they have. These ones came with ECS braided steel brake lines. You can see the red line back there. I'll bleed the system using the Motive power bleeder I have, and then we'll be done. Midway through the week, and it looks like today's the day I'm finally going to get this to pass emissions. Everything checks out so far, so I'm going to whip down to the drive clean place and hopefully get that piece of paper that will allow me to get on this road and be basically the ultimate winter beater for the wife. I'll update you guys when I get the paper, if I fail or if I pass. So it's the next day, but to pick up where I left off, as you can see, I got a big fat fail on my emissions test. Even though all my emissions passed, I did have a 0686 code for the J271 relay. That doesn't really exist in these V8 swap cars. So thankfully, working with Dominate Performance, we've been able to code that out. And I do not have that code anymore. So I just flashed that ECU. And tomorrow morning, I will be driving over to get the e-test. And it looks like this should be all solved finally. One nice thing about this is this finally means that you'll get to see some driving of the car, hear what it sounds like on the outside, and just get some impressions of what these swaps are like. So I'm pretty excited to finally have this ready to go and be able to give you guys some more footage of it. So the V8 car finally passed e-test, which is all good and well. Downside is they want to charge me $120 for registration for the car for 1 month. So we're just going to rock a temp permit until then, and then register it when we can get a full year for the $120. They don't prorate it in Ontario, unfortunately. So right now I need to tie up a coolant temp extension that I had to make. So that's hanging down. I'm not sure if you can see it with the exposure. And also I need to properly bleed the clutch. I had disconnected the slave cylinder and it just sort of gravity bled and has been good enough. But it does come up pretty slow and you can't really bang through gears. So first thing for the day is to get this done and then move on to some other errands, and then working on one of these 2.7s. So bled the clutch real quick, got a few bubbles out, but the pedal still returns super slow. I don't know if I've explained what clutch setup is in this. It's actually a 034, I believe, lightweight flywheel with a Ringer Racing full face clutch disc and then a modified OEM pressure plate. So one thing I do remember reading a long time ago, and I found the post again on one of the forums, is that there is a clutch release spring. There's a clutch release spring located. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a clutch release spring located behind the pedal. Apparently, the B5 S4 one is thin. In the thread, Mike Hood does say that the 1.8T spring is also thin and should work, but this looks pretty thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order the part, which will hopefully come in on Monday. And then we will see if that works, because that would be pretty sweet if it solved the clutch problem. So to show you what happens with the clutch here, basically you push it down, and then you can see it comes up very delayed and slow. So if you're trying to bang through gears, basically it just slips the clutch and the revs skyrocket. So the next thing I'm going to check now is I want to verify if the 1.8T cluster is outputting some sort of speed signal that usually should go to pin 54 on the V8 ECU. I have talked to some of the guys that have done these swaps, and I think it was Nick who told me that it might be the 2.8 cluster that outputs the speed signal. The 1.8T won't actually output a speed signal. It gathers the speed straight to the ECU. After I check that, I also need to verify my clutch pedal switch is working. We're having a little issue with anti-lag and revving past 4,500 even under normal driving conditions. And then that'll be it for now. So finishing off the week now, I did look into the cluster issue, and I did have a blue wire. You can actually see it where I probably looked at the clutch spring. I did have a blue wire coming off the back of the cluster, so I'll measure that for voltage at different speeds while the car was on the lift. And I did see at 0 speed, we have 0 voltage, and then as I bring the car up to speed, no matter what speed it is, it does average out about 5 volts or so. That's because it is like a sine wave. So based on your speed, that sine wave will probably be like fatter or skinnier, but the average, which we'll read on your voltmeter, will always stay the same. So I can't really see that unless I had an oscilloscope. But that's kind of unfortunate because now I do know there is a signal going to the ECU to pin 54, because I also tested continuity, of course. So unless the signal is so different that the ECU can't interpret it, I don't think it's the cluster. I'd still love to try a 2.8 cluster just to confirm that. But if any of you guys know anything about this or have tried and completed the swap successfully and had this problem and corrected it, definitely let me know. Shoot me an email, leave me a comment, contact me any way you can, because I'd love to figure it out. I did verify that the clutch switch worked as well. No issues with that. The problem with the anti-lag, and especially rolling anti-lag, is that we don't cut power to the coils because I have constant power wired in right now due to, again, the swap wiring for a 1.8T to the V8. So unfortunately, we're going to have to get rid of the anti-lag and just run it as is. Not really a big deal. I just wanted some cool sounds, to be honest. It's not really going to help me do anything or make the car run any better. So I have the car flashed back to a decently strong tune. Hopefully in the future, we're going to work on refining that a bit. And definitely over the winter, we got some really cool stuff planned. So hopefully you'll see a little bit more of this car next week. I have a few things to fix. But that's it for now, guys. Make sure if you haven't subscribed to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and check out our website. And until the next one, I'll see you guys soon.